General Hospital will reveal after Brennan secretly ordered Colette to assassinate Sonny while he was preparing for surgery at a hospital in Los Angeles. A dark, dangerous, and meticulously calculated plan was set into motion like a cold, emotionless machine. Brennan didn't get his hands dirty directly. As always, he gave the command from the shadows, hiding behind the facade of a trustworthy intelligence director, orchestrating brutal decisions through agents trained for absolute obedience. But with Colette, everything was different. She wasn't just a subordinate, she was a sharp blade Brennan both respected and feared. Still, this time, he demanded results. No mistakes. No failures. No trace. The mission was relayed in the form of a classified directive. Colette, once deputy director of the WSB in Port Charles, was no stranger to covert operations or blood-soaked assignments. She altered her appearance. Cut her hair short, wore colored contact lenses, and used forged identification to register as a temporary night shift nurse at the hospital, the perfect time to strike a target sedated and helpless. Brennan supplied her with a new identity, infiltration tools, an internal hospital map, and a rare poison designed to kill without leaving clear evidence, a compound made from 2 highly lethal agents, a few drops of which would stop the heart within 3 minutes, beyond revival. Colette entered the hospital as if she belonged there. Her eyes were icy, her face void of emotion. Every step she took echoed softly through the long, empty corridors. Her shadow stretched beneath the dim lights of the restricted treatment area. In her gloved right hand, she clutched a compact syringe, an instrument of death disguised as a tool of healing. As she approached the patient room, she activated a handheld signal jammer to disable the security cameras temporarily. She had 8 minutes. Just enough time to carry out the hit and disappear. Inside the room, Sonny lay still in bed, medical equipment blinking softly with each breath he took. The warm yellow glow from the bedside lamp cast shadows across his familiar face, a face that had survived countless assassination attempts. But tonight, the predator had come closer than ever before. Colette moved in with deliberate precision. Her hand reached out, aiming to inject the poison directly into a vein in his arm, a weak point chosen carefully for maximum effectiveness. Yet, just as the needle hovered less than an inch above his skin, Sonny's eyes suddenly flew open. In that split second, survival instinct, honed through years of danger, kicked in. He grabbed her wrist and locked her motion midair. A brief but intense struggle followed. The syringe hit the floor and shattered, its amber liquid seeping across the tile like spilled venom. The sound, though faint, pierced the silence like a warning bell. Outside, a real nurse passing by stopped in her tracks at the unfamiliar noise coming from the patient's room. She rushed in, only to see Colette restrained by Sonny, caught in the act. Without hesitation, the nurse triggered the emergency alarm, summoning hospital security. Within seconds, 2 armed guards arrived and subdued Colette before she could flee. Sonny was breathing heavily, still on edge. He didn't need an explanation, he knew exactly what had just happened. The woman in front of him wasn't a lost nurse. She was a trained assassin, sent to kill, and she wasn't acting alone. The name Brennan immediately surfaced in his mind like a lurking predator. But what Sonny didn't yet realize was that Colette's life had already been deemed expendable the moment she failed, and the one who would eliminate her to cover the trail was none other than the man who had put her on the board in the first place. Colette was subdued on the spot after her assassination attempt on Sonny failed by a narrow margin. Under the cold, sterile lights of the hospital, she was escorted in silence, no resistance, no explanation. Her face remained expressionless, cold as stone, betraying no emotion, no fear, no regret, no resentment. As the security team placed her in a secure transport vehicle destined for a classified WSB detention facility, no one realized that her death sentence had already been signed the moment that syringe shattered on the hospital floor. Meanwhile, Brennan, the man who had issued the fatal order, was confronted with a critical decision. From afar, he monitored the situation with a mask of composure, but internally, a storm of fury and urgency brewed. He understood the gravity of the failure. If Colette spoke, even once, it would unravel everything. Names, operations, networks, assassinations committed under the pretense of intelligence gathering, all could be exposed. She knew too much, had seen too deep. And in Brennan's world, anything that threatened his empire had to be eliminated. Without hesitation, Brennan authorized a special retrieval operation, a protocol reserved only for the most sensitive and dangerous contingencies. Using his deep connections within the WSB, he manipulated official channels, reclassified Colette's detainment, and reassigned her to a hand-picked team under the pretense of transferring her to a secure facility for debriefing. What wasn't written in the paperwork, however, was the true objective: permanent disposal. Colette was removed from the hospital under heavy guard in an unmarked armored vehicle, flanked by 2 operatives from an internal execution unit. These men never asked why. They were trained only to execute orders. The van rolled through the empty streets under dim streetlights, silence hanging thick in the air. Colette sat between them, her wrists bound, her gaze fixed ahead. She didn't speak. Didn't flinch. Perhaps she knew. In their world, failure equaled death, and loyalty meant nothing if it no longer served a purpose. As the vehicle reached a desolate stretch of road on the outskirts of the city, far from surveillance and tracking, the driver suddenly slowed. One agent exchanged a brief glance with the other and gave a silent nod, the signal. No words were spoken. They had done this before. Clean. Efficient. Untraceable. Colette was ordered to step out under the guise of a mechanical inspection. As she stood still in the crisp night air, one of the agents approached her from behind with a small syringe already prepared, a custom toxin hidden under layers of falsified documentation. Without a single warning, he drove the needle into a vein at her wrist. The poison entered her bloodstream like an invisible storm. Colette blinked once, as if understanding, then her body gave way and collapsed onto the damp earth. There were no witnesses. No gunshots. No blood. Her death was later recorded as an acute allergic reaction to medication, noted with clinical indifference in a sanitized report. No questions were asked. No follow-up inquiries. She was forgotten almost instantly. Back at his office, Brennan received a brief phone call. A confirmation. Nothing more. No details were necessary. He ended the call, returned to his desk, and resumed reviewing documents as though nothing had happened. His face showed no sign of emotion, but inside, he felt the cold comfort of control restored. A secret buried, sealed with blood and betrayal. Colette, once a fierce operative, a shadow loyal beyond reason, was now just another name added to the long list of assets neutralized. But for Brennan, it was a necessary step to protect the fortress he had built. And if the day came when another, Colette, threatened his grip on power, he would not hesitate to make that decision again. Because in his world, silence was survival. And death, just another form of damage control. Brennan sat silently in his spacious office in Port Charles, a room adorned with imported oak paneling and softly glowing lamps that cast warm light across every polished surface, as if conspiring to conceal the cold nature of the man in charge. On his desk lay neatly stacked files, a glowing laptop screen, and a crystal glass of amber whiskey catching the light just right. His phone rang, briefly. The call lasted no more than 5 seconds, but it marked the end of an entire chapter. It's done. That was all he needed to hear. Not a flicker of emotion crossed his face. No hesitation. No regret. And certainly no sorrow for the woman who had once served him with unwavering loyalty, who had executed unspeakable missions in the name of security and secrecy. Brennan calmly placed the phone down, leaned back in his high-backed leather chair, and allowed himself a faint smile. The smile of a man who had just buried another secret in the abyss he had carefully dug for years. He lifted the glass, took a slow sip of his drink. The light from the large window behind him reflected on the desk, glinting off the framed photograph of him with high-ranking intelligence officials. To the world, he remained a respected leader, a disciplined guardian of global order. No one passing his office, its door slightly ajar, could guess that mere hours earlier, this composed figure had issued the death sentence for one of his most loyal operatives. Work resumed as usual. Brennan signed papers, responded to secure emails, and oversaw international security protocols with methodical efficiency. Colleagues passed by with warm greetings, offering him polite nods and casual small talk. To them, he was the consummate professional, disciplined, composed, untouchable. No one suspected that behind the calm exterior was a man who had just orchestrated a silent execution. Hours later, an official report quietly entered the system. Colette Moreau, during transport to a secure facility, had suffered a sudden allergic reaction to a routine sedative. All medical intervention failed. Final cause of death, undetermined medical complication. The report was clean, concise, and raised no alarms. Her name was filed away, without red flags, as though she had been nothing more than a low-tier agent. As though she had never mattered. No obituary. No funeral. No condolences. Brennan sent no flowers. No memorials were held. She vanished from the world in the same way she had existed in it, quietly, invisibly, and completely alone. Yet deep within Brennan's mind, far beyond the reach of colleagues or subordinates, a fleeting image surfaced, the look in Colette's eyes the last time they met. There was no anger in her gaze, no plea. Only stillness, as if she had known her fate long before it arrived. But even that memory was swiftly buried beneath the layers of mental armor he had worn for a lifetime. Locked away. Forgotten. Colette's final chapter was sealed in absolute silence. No confessions. No mourning. No suspicion. And that, for Brennan, was the perfect ending. This was the art of survival, the craftsmanship of a man who cloaked every crime in diplomacy, and wiped away every drop of blood with the silk of power. In the days that followed the failed assassination attempt, while Sonny's body remained in a hospital bed recovering, his mind never once rested. Sleep eluded him, not because of pain or medication, but because of the cold, lingering memory of a syringe hovering over his skin, of Colette's empty gaze as she was subdued, and above all, the undeniable sense that he had narrowly escaped a meticulously orchestrated trap. Sonny had long ceased to be a man who simply reacted to threats. He had evolved through decades of surviving underground wars, betrayals, and bloodshed. And because of that, he knew, without question, that an assassination attempt carried out in a major hospital in Los Angeles, with a fake nurse sneaking in during the night, equipped with a rare poison and pinpoint timing, could never be the work of a lone agent. No one could infiltrate such a secure facility and carry out a mission so precise without assistance, without intel, without protection from powerful forces operating from the shadows. He began to retrace events that had unfolded over the past few months, events that had once seemed disconnected. The unexplained explosion at his penthouse apartment mere minutes after he left. Anonymous phone calls warning of a price to be paid for past mistakes. Business associates suddenly pulling away without a word. Even Carly had received a handwritten letter with no signature, only one chilling sentence: "Stay away from him before it's too late." At the time, Sonny had brushed it all off. He'd always had enemies. He was used to warnings. But now, those scattered puzzle pieces were locking together, forming a picture that chilled him to the bone. This wasn't random. This was a strategy, a long-game operation designed not just to rattle him, but to eliminate him. And the architect of that strategy was no longer a mystery. From the fog of suspicion, one name began to crystallize with terrifying clarity: Brennan. The man had entered Sonny's world under the guise of a polished WSB official, powerful, composed, and always in control. Brennan had never confronted Sonny directly, but his presence had always brought a strange unease. He was the kind of man who operated behind velvet curtains, pulling strings without ever leaving fingerprints. Colette, before her death, had once said in passing, "He never gets his hands dirty. But he always knows exactly who will." Sonny had shrugged it off then. Now, the weight of those words echoed like a prophecy. And Sonny understood something else. When Brennan marked someone for death, he didn't stop after one failure. Colette's failure meant nothing to him. The larger plan was still in motion. Sonny had faced danger before, but never one that felt this vast, this coordinated, this suffocating. He wasn't up against a person. He was facing a machine, a carefully constructed system designed to erase him completely. From that moment, Sonny knew he couldn't wait for the next move. He began locking down his security network, bringing in Brick to audit every inch of his personal protection. He called upon allies from the underworld, people who owed him, people he trusted with his life. Quietly, he started digging into Brennan's past, using channels even the WSB couldn't track. He knew he couldn't confront Brennan the traditional way, there was no evidence, no legal leverage. But Sonny didn't need courtrooms. In his world, justice wore different clothes. The deeper he dug, the more he saw the extent of Brennan's reach. And his ruthlessness. Colette had been erased mere hours after her failure, her death masked by a cold, clinical report. No funeral. No one to mourn her. No one dared ask questions. And that, Sonny realized, was Brennan's true message: I can make anyone disappear. You're next. But Brennan had miscalculated one thing: Sonny was not a man who cowered. Fear didn't cripple him. It sharpened him. It made him colder, more calculating, more dangerous. And now, he wasn't just defending himself. He was preparing to strike. From that moment on, a war began to take shape. A silent, smoldering conflict brewing beneath the surface of the city. Not just a personal vendetta between two men, but a clash between two worlds, one built on secret power and cold manipulation, the other on survival, resilience, and the will to protect everything that mattered. Sonny knew this was no longer about a single failed attempt. This was the opening move of a larger battle. And this time, he wouldn't wait in the dark. He would bring the fight to the source.